On a routine hike through the rugged mountain terrain, Wesley stumbled upon an astonishing sight. An old, camouflaged tank, a forgotten relic of war, hidden by nature's embrace. Overcome by curiosity and the thrill of discovery, he managed to climb inside, eager to uncover remnants of its past stories and secrets. But what he discovered inside led to his immediate arrest. Wesley couldn't believe this was happening to him. He was innocent, for God's sake. He had tried to tell the officers, but they already had their judgment ready. Finally, after 30 minutes, his lawyer arrived. Knowing he wouldn't be able to talk himself out of this situation, he had requested one. But sadly, that only made the situation worse. The police officers saw him as the bad guy, having caught him red-handed inside the tank. Wesley still couldn't believe how they could have been there right at the time he found the tank and went in. It all seemed a bit too coincidental for his liking. Luckily, his lawyer was here now, and he could set the facts straight, or so he hoped. But his case turned out to be a hard one to crack. The police had been looking for whatever Wesley found inside for a long time, and now that they had it in their hands, they wouldn't let go easily. But what did Wesley find inside the tank? Why was the police so eager to arrest him? And will he be freed? When Wesley began his hike, he never expected to end up at the police station. He would often explore a new part of the forest close to his home, but this time he stumbled upon something he never in his wildest dreams imagined to find. At first, he thought it was a random pipe sticking out of the muddy mountain wall, but little did he know it was something entirely different. As he neared what he thought to be a pipe, he realized there was a whole other piece it was attached to. It took him a minute to realize it was actually a tank, because it was camouflaged too well with the mountain wall. Through the years it had been there, nature had run its course and taken over the tank's physique. As Wesley slowly neared the tank, his mouth fell open. It seemed so familiar, but he wasn't sure from where. He began to brush some of the mud off and revealed what seemed like a marking or number. That's when it clicked. This was a tank used in the war all those years ago. It must have been there for decades. The realization sparked Wesley's curiosity even more. Who knew what could be hidden away inside the tank? It could be the find of his life and bring him a lot of money. But little did he know, it would bring him more pain than joy. As he began to walk around the tank, he couldn't help but smile. He had to get inside. One thing Wesley didn't realize, though, was that he was being watched. "Target in sight," Officer Fernandez whispered through his radio. He was looking at Wesley through his binoculars a few feet away from the tank. "Wait till my sign," he said to his men. "We have to catch him red-handed, or else this will all be for nothing." Meanwhile, Wesley couldn't believe his eyes as he slowly began to climb up the tank. His heart raced as he realized the tank was quite high and slippery from the mud. When he almost reached a place to stand, one of his feet slipped and his body slammed against the metal. Pain shot through his body, but he held on tightly so he wouldn't fall all the way down. When he finally stood upright on top of the tank, he took a minute to catch his breath. This tank had probably not been opened in decades, or so he thought. He began to open the hatch carefully and, soon after, disappeared inside. The tank was dark and musty, so Wesley turned on the flashlight on his phone. When he finally saw what he had stepped into, it was already too late. The moment Wesley's eyes adjusted to the darkness inside the tank, he was blinded by several laser sights targeting him from police guns. In that instant, his adventure turned into a nightmare. He had imagined many possible endings to his discovery, but being caught in the crosshairs of law enforcement was not one of them. This was the kind of excitement he never wished for. As Wesley cautiously peeked out of the tank, the sight of 3 police officers with their guns pointed directly at him sent shivers down his spine. Their voices were firm and clear, commanding him to exit the tank immediately. This situation was far from the treasure hunt Wesley had envisioned. It was more like a scene from an action movie, but with him as the unwitting antagonist. The moment Wesley's feet touched the ground, he was met by a swarm of police officers, moving in with precision and speed. The swift clasp of handcuffs around his wrists felt surreal, as if he was detached from the reality unfolding around him. This wasn't just about finding an old tank anymore. He had inadvertently stepped into a labyrinth of legal troubles. Wesley was swiftly escorted into the back of a police car, his mind racing with unanswered questions. As he was tossed inside, he caught glimpses of the officers securing the area, treating the discovery of the tank as if it were a major crime scene. Wesley's curiosity about the tank's contents turned into apprehension about what his future held. Sitting in the back seat, Wesley could only watch as the police carefully removed item after item from the tank, each one meticulously bagged as evidence. The scene was a stark contrast to the excitement he had felt upon finding the tank. Now, he was left wondering about the significance of each item being cataloged and what it meant for him. This was just the beginning of a new chapter in Wesley's adventure, one filled with more questions than answers. As Wesley watched, baffled and cuffed, a team of CSI experts swarmed the tank. They were all business, dusting for prints and collecting samples, completely ignoring Wesley's protests of innocence. It was like he wasn't even there. Wesley could only watch as they combed through his discovery, turning his adventure into a full-blown investigation. The drive to the police station felt like the longest ride of Wesley's life. With each passing minute, he replayed the day's events, trying to figure out where things went wrong. The officer driving was like a statue, giving away nothing, not even a glance in the rearview mirror. Wesley's attempts at conversation hit a dead end every time, leaving him stewing in his own thoughts. Pulling up to the police station, Wesley felt a mix of relief and dread. Maybe now he'd get some answers, but the silent cop just led him inside, indifferent to Wesley's confusion and fear. Walking through those doors, Wesley realized this was far more serious than he ever imagined. His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle of his situation. Inside, Wesley was taken to an interrogation room, a stark, cold space that did nothing to ease his anxiety. The silence continued as he waited for someone, anyone, to come in and start asking questions. But the wait dragged on, leaving Wesley to his own spiraling thoughts. He rehearsed what he'd say, how he'd explain his innocence, yet the quiet was unnerving. Finally, a detective entered, but Wesley's attempts to explain fell on deaf ears. It was like talking to a brick wall. He explained over and over that he was just hiking, that the discovery was accidental. But the detective's expression never changed, as if Wesley's words were just noise. Wesley realized this was just the beginning of a long, complicated journey to clear his name. Wesley couldn't help but wonder about the timing of the cop's arrival. It felt too perfect, too coordinated. As he sat in the back of the police car, the sequence of events played back in his mind like a movie, each detail making him more suspicious. How did they know to find him right then and there? It was as if they were waiting for him to make the discovery. In the station, Wesley overheard snippets of conversations about Officer Fernandez. Apparently, this case was Fernandez's big project, something he'd been working on for a long time. Wesley, still clueless about the larger picture, felt like a pawn in a game he didn't understand. The realization that he was somehow part of a long-standing investigation only added to his confusion and unease. Sitting alone, Wesley couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been set up. But why? What did they think he knew? The more he thought about it, the more it seemed like he'd walked into a trap designed for someone else. This wasn't just about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It felt personal, as if he was meant to find that tank. Wesley was left alone in an interrogation room, the silence heavy and oppressive. The room felt like a box, closing in on him with each passing minute. He replayed the day's events in his head, searching for anything that might explain what was happening. But the longer he sat, the more the walls seemed to talk, echoing his fears and doubts back at him. As the silence stretched on, Wesley felt a sinking feeling of guilt, as if he'd already been judged and found guilty. The lack of communication, the stares, and the whispers among the officers, all of it made him feel condemned without a trial. He was just sitting there, but it felt like he was screaming into a void, unheard and unconsidered, bracing for what was to come. In a moment of desperation, Wesley blurted out that he wanted a lawyer, thinking it might be his ticket out of the mess. But the moment the words left his mouth, the atmosphere changed. The officer's demeanor shifted, as if Wesley's request had confirmed their suspicions. Now, he wasn't just a guy who found something. He was a guy who found something and needed a lawyer. Asking for a lawyer seemed to backfire immediately. Instead of helping, it made Wesley look guilty in the eyes of the police. The room felt colder, the officers' questions sharper. Wesley could see it in their eyes. They thought he was hiding something. Panic began to set in, twisting his stomach into knots. This was spiraling far beyond what he'd imagined when he first saw that tank. Now, Wesley was truly starting to panic. The gravity of his situation was hitting him hard. Sitting in that cold, unfriendly room, he realized this might not just blow over. This could be serious, potentially changing the course of his life. The walls seemed to close in as the reality of his predicament dawned on him. What had started as a simple hike was turning into a nightmare. Finally, Officer Fernandez entered the room, ready to grill Wesley about the tank. But every time Fernandez started on a line of questioning, Wesley's newly appointed lawyer cut him off, advising Wesley to remain silent. It was a strange feeling, watching someone else take control of his narrative. Wesley wanted to explain, to tell his side, but his lawyer's stern, keep quiet look kept him silent. Each time Wesley attempted to speak, his lawyer shot him a warning glance that spoke volumes. It was clear. Stay silent. Let me handle this. Wesley felt frustrated, muzzled by his own defense. He had so much he wanted to say, explanations that he believed could clear this all up. But the lawyer's strategy was to keep him quiet, a tactic that Wesley hoped would eventually lead to his freedom. Wesley couldn't shake the feeling that the cops were just looking for someone to blame, and he was the perfect target. It was like he'd walked into a bad movie, where he was cast as the villain without even auditioning. The more he thought about it, the more it seemed they weren't interested in the truth, just in closing the case with his name on it. Out of the blue, Fernandez slammed a metal box onto the table with a loud clang, breaking the tense silence. He pushed it toward Wesley, demanding he open it. Wesley stared at the box, puzzled. He'd never seen it before, and certainly didn't have the key. The box, old and rusted, seemed to hold more questions than answers, adding another layer of mystery to his predicament. Fernandez's patience wore thin, as Wesley insisted he knew nothing about the box. The officer's face turned red with frustration, thinking Wesley was playing dumb. With a huff, Fernandez stormed out of the room, leaving the metal box behind. Wesley felt a mix of relief and confusion as the door slammed shut. he was left wondering what was so significant about the box. After Fernandez and his lawyer left, Wesley found himself alone with the mysterious box. He turned it over in his hands, examining every inch. The box was cold, heavy, and locked tight. Wesley's curiosity grew with each passing second. What was inside? And why did Fernandez think he could open it? The box was like a puzzle, taunting him with its secrets. Sitting alone in the interrogation room, Wesley couldn't help but feel like he was missing a piece of a much larger puzzle. The metal box sat on the table, a silent enigma. Wesley knew that figuring out its significance could be the key to understanding the whole situation. But for now, it remained just out of reach, a mystery wrapped in rusted metal, waiting to be solved. Out of nowhere, Fernandez unlocked Wesley's cuffs and dragged him back to the car. Wesley, confused and anxious, tried to ask where they were going, but Fernandez stayed silent. The air was thick with tension, and Wesley's mind raced with possibilities. Was he being taken back home? Or was this the start of something worse? Fernandez's stern face offered no clues, only adding to Wesley's growing unease. The drive was silent, but charged with an unspoken fury emanating from Fernandez. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white, as if struggling to contain a storm within. Wesley sat quietly, observing Fernandez's every move, trying to decipher the situation. The atmosphere was so tense, it felt like the car was charged with electricity, ready to ignite at any moment. They arrived back at the tank, now bathed in the harsh glow of forensic lights, making the scene look surreal. Fernandez practically threw Wesley out of the car and onto the ground. The tank, once a curious discovery, now seemed like a beacon of trouble, illuminating Wesley's predicament in the worst possible light. Fernandez wasted no time, his demands echoing in the chilly air. Under the bright forensic lights, Fernandez was all business, pressing Wesley to find the key to the mysterious metal box. Wesley felt like he was in a bad dream, with the spotlight on him and the pressure mounting. Fernandez's impatience was palpable, his expectations clear, yet Wesley had no idea where to start. The key, if it existed, was as much a mystery to him as the box itself. Wesley scrambled around the tank under Fernandez's watchful eye, trying to make sense of the demand for the key. Fernandez's impatience grew with each passing moment, his frustration evident in every gesture and command. Wesley felt lost, caught in a situation far beyond his understanding, desperately wishing he could wake up from this nightmare and return to the simplicity of his hike. Wesley felt the weight of the situation as he searched for a key he knew nothing about, with Fernandez's patience wearing thin. It was a strange and tense treasure hunt, with his freedom hanging in the balance. Every corner of the tank he checked, and every minute that passed seemed to push his chances of getting out of this mess further away. Desperation set in as Wesley frantically tore through the tank, feeling as if every second lost was a step closer to losing his freedom. Amidst the chaos, he couldn't help but realize the historical significance of his surroundings. However, the urgency of the search overshadowed any chance to appreciate the tank's past. Wesley's focus was solely on finding the key that might unlock his way out. While Wesley dug through the tank, it dawned on him that he was sifting through a treasure trove of history. Yet, the police were interested in only one thing. The irony wasn't lost on him. The past's mysteries and stories were secondary to the present dilemma. His discovery had the potential to be monumental, but all that mattered now was the elusive key. As Wesley uncovered various artifacts within the tank, his amazement grew. Each item told a story, hinting at the tank's rich past. However, the pressing need to find the key overshadowed his wonder. With Fernandez's impatience mounting, Wesley had no choice but to push his awe aside and continue the search, his sense of urgency overriding his fascination. Just when Wesley felt his energy waning, voices from outside the tank momentarily halted their frantic search. Both he and Fernandez paused, listening. The interruption was unexpected, bringing an abrupt stop to the tension-filled hunt. For a moment, the urgency of their task was put on hold, as they turned their attention to the new development outside the tank. Wesley and Fernandez suddenly stopped their frantic search, as they realized others were approaching. They quickly hid, hearts pounding, understanding the gravity of being caught in their clandestine hunt. The thought of outsiders stumbling upon them, especially now, added a new layer of danger to an already tense situation. It was a moment of silent agreement between them. Stay hidden, stay quiet. Peeking from their hiding spot, Wesley and Fernandez watched two sketchy figures in hoodies slip into the tank. The intruders moved with a purpose, their whispers harsh against the quiet. It was clear they were familiar with the tank, their ease in the space signaling they weren't just curious hikers. Wesley's pulse raced as he realized these weren't just random trespassers. They were here for something specific. One of the hoodie-clad figures pulled out a key, laughing at the supposed incompetence of the police. Their arrogance filled the cramped space, thinking they were steps ahead of the law. Wesley and Fernandez exchanged a glance, the importance of the key instantly understood. It was the missing piece to the puzzle they'd been desperately trying to solve, now tantalizingly close, yet still out of reach. As the two intruders talked, they unknowingly revealed more about the mysterious box and their stash. Wesley and Fernandez listened intently, absorbing every word. The tension in their hiding spot was palpable, a mix of fear and anticipation. Each revelation from the intruder's lips brought a mix of emotions: relief at finally understanding more of the story, but anxiety over what came next. Wesley and Fernandez remained motionless, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. They were witnesses to a confession, the thieves blissfully unaware of their audience. The irony wasn't lost on Wesley. Moments ago, he was the prime suspect, and now he held the key to unraveling the case. The tension was thick, a silent standoff between ignorance and enlightenment, all under the dim glow of forensic lights. Without warning, Fernandez leapt into action, his gun drawn and aimed at the unsuspecting thieves. Wesley, caught up in the moment, lunged forward, managing to trip them up. It was a chaotic scramble, but Fernandez's training kicked in, and within moments, the would-be criminals were on the ground, subdued. Wesley, though breathless, realized they had just turned the tables in a dramatic fashion. The chase that ensued was brief, the element of surprise firmly on their side. With the thieves quickly cuffed and under control, Fernandez and Wesley escorted them back to the police car. The ride to the station was a mix of adrenaline and relief for Wesley. He had gone from suspect to participant in a police takedown, a turn of events he'd never have predicted. Back at the station, the anticipation was palpable as they prepared to open the mysterious box. With a click, the lid swung open, revealing a diamond necklace of incredible beauty and apparent value. Wesley watched, amazed, as the officers examined the piece, its significance immediately clear. It was a historic find, stolen and hidden away by the very thieves they'd just apprehended. Investigation revealed the necklace to be a high-profile item stolen from a wealthy family, making the discovery even more significant. The tank, an unlikely hiding spot, had been chosen by the thieves to stash their loot. Wesley watched as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, the story unfolding like a detective novel with the tank and its contents at the center. With the real criminals caught and the stolen necklace recovered, Wesley found himself suddenly in the clear. The accusations and suspicions that had clouded his day vanished, replaced by a sense of achievement. His unexpected role in solving the case turned him into an overnight hero, a status he'd never aspired to, but now held. Amid the chaos, Wesley had helped right a wrong, earning him gratitude and a story for the ages. Under the pressure of capture, the thieves couldn't keep their secret any longer. They confessed to the heist, detailing how they'd stashed the stolen goods in the tank. This confession was the key that unlocked Wesley's innocence, clearing his name completely. It was a moment of relief and vindication for Wesley, whose only crime was stumbling upon a hidden piece of history during an ordinary hike. Wesley's unexpected involvement in solving the case didn't go unnoticed. To his surprise, he was awarded a medal for his accidental heroics. The ceremony, small but significant, marked his transition from a suspect to a celebrated helper. Wesley, who had started his day as just another hiker, found himself honored for contributions he never intended to make. It was a surreal twist in his ordinary life. The tank, once abandoned and forgotten in the mountain, was given a new lease on life. Pulled from its hidden spot, it was carefully restored and eventually placed in a war museum. This transformation gave the tank a place of honor, allowing it to tell its story and the stories of those who served in it. It became a tangible piece of history, appreciated by those looking to connect with the past. Wesley made it a point to visit the museum, standing in front of the tank that had so dramatically changed his life. It stood as a reminder of his incredible journey from an innocent hiker to an accidental hero. The museum visit was bittersweet, a mix of nostalgia for the adventure and gratitude for the outcome. It was a moment of reflection on how unpredictable life can be and how ordinary moments can lead to extraordinary stories.